Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be back with another Young Indian, part of the Voice of the Young series. Right now, we have with us Sagnik Mitra. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Sagnik.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, thank you, Subodh, for the opportunity. It's been an amazing series which I've been following for some time now, and I am very grateful to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm Sagnik. I come from a small town in Jharkhand called Giridih. So that's where I grew up, and I've spent my early years of education and life there with my parents. And Giridih is a small industrial town in Jharkhand, which has a very strong history of um, overall changing socio-cultural setup along with industrial change, which grew across the year. So I did my 10th standard till my 10th standard. I was in Giridih, and later I followed my higher education, which I pursued in commerce from Giridih. And because of lack of opportunities for further studies at the place, which both me and my parents wanted for my career, I eventually moved out to Kolkata. So I did my bachelor's in finance from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. So those were like one of the most foundational years of my life, where for the first time I was in a new city, and also in a room with one of the most brilliant people I've met at college. So those my friends today are now one of the top finance minds in the country. So I'm very fortunate and sort of lucky to have had a share class with them. Xavier's was the time where how I would when I look back at, I was confused. So I was a good student, but along with that also came many different options to pursue. So I was pursuing a course in chartered accountancy at the time, because that was something that naturally occurred to me was the right way to go. And I was deeply interested in economics and finance, which was the subjects I was pursuing in college. And how I got into the development sector and how policy found me was is something that would have never occurred to me in my undergrad, because at that time it was all about getting into a corporate job or doing an MBA, as is as some people assume and think when they're 18 in India. So I did my undergrad thesis with a professor, where we sort of understood through various statistical methods about the development divide between different Asian countries, and how economic development and economic growth are two different concepts, and how they are not how they are correlated. So that was my thesis was about. And during that time, COVID hit when I was in my final year of graduation in 2020. And that was a period in my life where I was doing my thesis, and also I had gotten some time off from college and how things go normally in general. And that gave me a lot of time to reflect upon things and understand that what I wanted from my career, and what I wanted my work to look like, and what were my professional needs. And probably the kind of problems I wanted to solve were not business problems, which I was being trained for in university. So that was a time when I decided to take a shift from what I was pursuing in college. And I started to look at roles other than which matched more to my inclination and my interest areas. And as I always say, I did not find policy, policy found me. So it just happened to be so that there was a fellowship application. It's a national fellowship called the Mahatma Gandhi Fellowship, which was offered by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, or sponsored by the Indian government. And it just was one of those random applications which I filled on one like night, where I was exploring options, and I happened to get through all the stages. So as a part of the fellowship, which I joined in the year 2021, I was a student of public policy at Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, and I was also working with the Indian government as a policy consultant. As a part of my job, I was posted in the state of Nagaland, and I was posted in a very remote district which bordered with Myanmar, known as Tuensang. So, I would like to speak more about my professional experience here, which sort of is the foundation of who I am today and how I think and how I look at policy problems. Because all before, everything before Nagaland was a very academic, idealistic, uh, how people look at things in a classroom. When I went to the field and I started working with bureaucrats and I started working with policy professionals, my outlook towards problems changed. And what changed my perspective was talking to people who were actually affected by the issues and not people who were trying to solve it. So, my stint in Nagaland began in the year 2021, where I was posted with the deputy commissioner, and I was assisting him with various areas, especially focusing on livelihood policies, skill development policies, trying to tackle the unemployment situation, which was very severe when I joined in my district. So it was quite a big shift for me coming right from college. And also because I remember my first meeting where the meeting was conducted in the local language. And I was the first, and I was just sitting there. And after the meeting, somebody told me to make the minutes. And I had not understood anything in the meeting. So that was my first, introduction to what I had signed up for. And it was really exciting and really challenging. So within a few months, I had to pick up the language, I had to pick up the work culture, which is very different from everything that I have been trained in a corporate setup, which was about Excel and PPTs and deadlines. Here, everything was very ambiguous to begin with. So there was no problem statement to solve because problems have not been diagnosed. There were just issues and there were complaints and there were piles and piles of files and applications. So that's like how a government office looks like. So my initial months in the fellowship was a lot of unlearning or what I had done in university of how things are supposed to look linear and structured because there was no structure to work. And that is how I think development work in India looks like.
Yeah.
Because uh, people assume they have an understanding of the problem, but they actually don't.
Yeah.
More and more I spoke to people, and it got better when I understood, when I started speaking their language. That's when I started talking to NGO partners. Started talking to people. I created a lot of pilot programs. So one of which was Hope Morung, which means Morung is is a local term in Nagamese, which means institution. So here we spoke with a lot of unemployed people to try to understand what actually were the problems they were facing and not what we were trying to address in our
Yeah.
meetings or through schemes, which is just giving away money or conducting a 2-day training program. So my understanding was that development work in India was a very event based approach. There was a series of one event to the another, and there was no process to it. There was no issue diagnosis, there was no due diligence to things, which were things which I was trained in my university, and I sort of tried to bring my learnings to the field. But it was initially it was very confusing, but later, with time, with more conversations and data, I think things started making sense. And that is when we started designing proposals on what actually people need. And I sort of reconstituted the skill development committee, which I was heading in my team, and sort of included women, tribal representatives, because the district I was working in was very complex in a tribal language wise, because there were people from different tribes who
Yeah.
had different interests and different, and it was a very politically charged district because given the historical legacy of Nagaland, of its troubled past with integration with the country. My district was the frontier district for all the political undertone, which sort of shaped the narrative and is still shaping the narrative. So I was personally facing issues where we would see um, a lot of separatist tendencies from people who are still in the underground and the common youth which wanted to integrate with the economy of the country. So there was a very big divide just going on, and that helped me sort of understand the narrative better of what I was dealing with and explain it to my deputy commissioner, who was who was the lead of the district to solve these issues. So I created a lot of pilot programs, and we realized that what we needed right now, given the political lack of political will in a way to change things, was skills-based entrepreneurship. So that became my sort of core area, which I focused on in my second year. So I ended up along with the team, I created a lot of institutions such as the Entrepreneurship Development Cell. I spoke to a lot of unemployed people and sort of created some self-help groups where we could talk about issues which are going on. We created a monthly um, dialogue session where the DC would come. And this was the first time that professionals, the bureaucrats and people were talking with each other on the same platform, because I realized that what people need, people who were suffering the issues and people who wanted to sort of solve the issues, they were very divorced from reality. So what our schemes were and what our loans were being granted for and what they were needed for, there was a lot of chasm between both of them. So those became my core issues when I was working, and it was a very interesting time. It was nothing, the kind of people I met, the kind of conversations I had, sort of changed how I look at policy problems. Because for me now, I actually saw how policies fail. I always say that 2 years was just everyday learning of what fails, what does not work. Because my role was completely implementation. So I completely understood from a bureaucrat's point of view, as well as from a NGO's point of view, as in what does not work, why things don't work, why people sitting in Delhi don't understand or assume what sort of infrastructure is there or is required to implement a scheme. So those were the learnings which I took from the fellowship. And this was also paralleled with my education, which was going at IIM Koikod, where again the picture was very different because because the college hosted professionals from many states, which was Nagaland, Delhi, Chhattisgarh, and Kerala. All these states with very different development indicators and very different development challenges, but we were all in the same classroom and expected to deliver same results. That is again one of the issues which I found with the whole approach towards development problems in India, as in one shoe fit all, which clearly was something that I realized while working, that this was not something that will go, because there has to be a phased, cultural, decentralized, bottoms up approach when it comes to policy issues. So some core areas where I invested a lot of, yeah.
Shag, just a second.
Mm-hmm.
I very much agree with what you just said. And I'm doing something about it, which I will talk to you often and hope to
Sure.
get your support on it.
Mm-hmm.
Very briefly, I have helped set up a non-profit group in India called Ecotech Innovators
Okay.
that is looking to develop small towns in India, small towns meaning 1 lakh population in 2011 census. Right now we have Rajasthan, West Bengal, and Odisha, B states. And the aim is create jobs and increase incomes. And we are going to be hyper local,
Okay.
which is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Hyper local, but with different nuances. I'll say it the way men go to shop for clothes. Okay, you
I
go.
got it.
I don't know about women. Okay, you go to shop. You say, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many shirts hanging. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them fit me. I'll take it.
Got it.
But the pants and the coat, I'll buy
Mm-hmm.
my own cloth. Can you stitch it for me, custom?" Well, I said, "Of course, go get it."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "That's bespoke. That's customized. That's hyper local." But
Yeah.
there is some standard options which we see whether they fit. So this is our approach for these small towns to create jobs and increase incomes. Very briefly, what you are saying is you've got to be hyper local. I agree. But I'm saying that you need not stop there. You can
True.
also have certain standard options, which if they work, you have 10 options, 2 of them fit, put it there.
Sure.
So that's the advantage of standardization.
Mm-hmm.
Take those, adapt it, and make it work. So we will talk more about it offline, because otherwise I'll keep talking.
Definitely,
So,
I'm very interested in your idea,
okay,
and
good. So we'll talk about it offline. This is your turn. But I thought I would pitch in and say that yes, even though I've never been to Nagaland or any such place, I'm very much in agreement with you. And this is the approach that we, as a non-profit, the government cannot do it. They are bound to be standardized across at least all districts, or at least, the government of India has, union government has so-called aspirational districts, which is
yes.
a euphemism for backward,
Hmm.
which they say, no, this one size fits all doesn't fit them. But actually, then they have one size fits all for all their aspirational districts, which are spread across all the states. That the government cannot escape that. Okay. But
Completely.
as a non-profit, we don't have to be in it. So, anyway, let me stop. Otherwise, I'll never stop. And please continue with your narrative. Let's go.
Yeah. So like building on your point, as you said, I really understood the importance and the agency which development actors other than the government had when it came to challenges. Because I worked very closely with some civil society organizations where I also worked as an economic instructor to a lot of students who did not have the opportunity to, say, go to Kohima or beyond Nagaland to study. And that is when I first realized the challenges when it comes to education or learning outcomes. But it also gave me an understanding of why the civil society organizations are required to create tailored solutions, as you mentioned right now. And by this time, when I was working on all these projects, came my biggest learning, which was the Nagaland State Assembly elections in 2023. So I was very fortunate, and I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity to work as with some of the most senior um, officers from the Election Commission of India. And that is when the elections was a experience of its own. It's a university to learn on its own. The
Yeah.
kind of challenges I saw, and the kind of civic threats which we, as an office, we received, given the voting, when the voting was actually happening, it sort of helped me understand that how such a big um, the whole exercise of voting is organized. And before this, I was only, for me, it was only a 1 day activity where I go and vote. But when I saw it from the other side of how it has been organized and what are the challenges, it helped me understand the development issues even better, of how voting and the voting behavior changes, how people look at development funds, or how people look at development issues in general, and how this is voting is the biggest instrument as a democracy which we have in India to sort of change that narrative. So it was not just the technical process of the whole organization, but also the underlying factors which voting influences and sort of entails when it comes to development. And by this time, I was about to finish my fellowship, like this, by the end of 2023. And this was a time when, having worked for 2 years, I understood my professional needs even better, because I understood the kind of stories I was telling and the kind of insight and professional opinion I was offering were not informed with data. So in Nagaland, or in development sector in India in general, what I understood, that data is a big issue. So when we started looking for data, we started looking for when we start looking for numbers, we start looking for things which don't work or don't exist. We start finding out. When we start to add those numbers, we see there's a lot of discrepancy. That's one of the time when I realized that maybe my professional opinion or my insight into things, or how I wanted to understand things better, were not adequate. For example, something as important as impact evaluation of a scheme was something I could not do at that time, because I did not have the right tools and the right skill sets to handle data or to inform my professional opinion of how things should go from here, or even how to understand the policy problems in a way. So that is when I decided that I wanted to few years in academia to understand, to to go through the academic rigor, to understand some tools, some data set, some tools, some methods, some statistical analysis to inform my experience and build on it. So that is how Hertie came to life. So I'm currently a first year master's in public policy student at Hertie, and the whole journey to Hertie came from years like these 2 years of unlearning of what the development sector is, and if I wanted to grow into it, what should I do? So coming to Hertie was a practical decision to enter into policy with a more legitimate and technical point of view, because I was working in the implementation side of policy for the last 2 years, and now I wanted to move towards the design side of it. So, having worked in the consulting sector for 2 years, I understood how implementation works. I just wanted to understand how can we look at these things at a macro level or at an international level, and that is how Hertie and an international degree came to my mind. So I moved to Berlin in the mid of 2024 when my semester started. And at college, I think at Hertie, one of the best things is the kind of people you meet. Apart from the classrooms and the teachings, this is such an international space. At every bend of the corner, I find somebody from some other country, and I can have a conversation with how development looks at their place, and the kind of riveting conversations I've had with the things I worked with, and how different it looks in, say, Brazil for that matter, or at the very bend of the street, I can talk to somebody in London or somebody in South Africa of how the same issue looks so different in their countries and how people are dealing with it. And secondly, now comes to the classrooms and the teachings which we had at Hertie. So I just finished my first semester in December, and I'm very grateful and really fortunate to, have such mind-opening conversations when it came to digital policy or it came to economics, which I have done before, like in a very theoretical aspect. But now when I integrate it to policy and the discussions which are going on, like how the political tide is changing, and that sort of gave me a lot of insight, as in how things will look from here or how we are going forward. So in Hertie, we always focus on like you can only shape tomorrow if you understand today. So there's a lot of focus on understanding the political discourse, understanding the policy innovations which are going on across. And there are like it's not just the classroom, it's Berlin, and there are tons of workshop, and there's a lot of political energy across the city which sort of nudges you in that direction, which is something that I did not see so much in where I worked before. But might be the case in Delhi or Bombay, but where I was working, I did not see, a city being so conscious, a city being so uh, aware of its political and social responsibilities, which I find in Berlin. And so I did some foundational courses which involved statistics and maths and economics. It was something that I was exclusively looking for when I came here, because I wanted to understand data better. And when it comes to development sector, I think it's a bit challenging compared to the business world, because data is not easy to get or easy to work with. So I am trying to understand how artificial intelligence could be used better to understand development problems, because from here on, in my understanding, AI is something that will take over how we look at the world in general. So, how can we use AI to solve issues in development space? Within the sector, I think my college focuses on climate as a policy issue, and digitization as a policy issue, which is one of the core areas we specialize in at Hertie. And I'm trying to understand how can my experiences in my professional life can be built upon with the tools I'm learning here, and how can I understand, and how can I inform people with my expertise in this field. I'm still trying to understand what sort of niche I want to specialize in. So these are areas, and for this, I'm trying to take up different courses, speak to people, alumni, and also trying to look at internships where I would understand what uh, roles are better. And I feel like if every 3 to 4 years of my life, I come to the same precipice when, I need to understand my professional needs better. But I think that is what I think everybody in the 20s go through, where in every third or in every cycle, you sort of try to understand your professional needs. But in my few years of experience, I think it has only improved, as in what you want to work, what you want to do sort of comes to you when you keep working and sort of trying to make sense of things in hindsight, because that has always been the case for me, because what I did in undergrad and what I'm doing right now are like poles apart. So it helps me understand the world better, or how to make sense of things what are happening, my education at Hertie or my work back with the government. And what I want to do right now is also trying to create a better structure to understand things professionally as well as personally.
Hmm.
So this has been my journey overall, and I try to build upon it as I
Well, Sagnik, it's a very, very fascinating story. Uh, somebody from Giridih goes to Nagaland, goes to Germany, goes all over, experiences. It's modern India. I mean, that was not possible in our times.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question that would be of interest to other younger people. Having decided to study public policy, there's a set of questions. First, why choose to go abroad? Second, if you choose to go abroad, what were the places that you considered? And number three, why did you choose Hertie? And how do you get into Hertie? So we have four questions, right? So
Hmm.
you have decided to, let me ask them, you have decided to study public policy. Why not in India?
Okay. So I'll go sequentially.
Yeah, so first answer this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not in India? So I think India was definitely the first place where I was looking for when it came to opportunities for the masters. But as of now, I think policy in India is at a boom when it comes to professional experience, when it comes to jobs. But I still, in my personal opinion, I still don't think, as far as institutions are concerned, we have grown so much. For example, the education of policy. What we have right now is a lot of like professional uh, experience in policy, like a lot of jobs are opening up and the market is opening up to new people. But when it comes to, say, the education of it, I did not find, I know some very good universities which have some wonderful courses, but it all did not align to what I wanted to do at that moment.
But could you name some of them that you think are very good, but you didn't choose them? It's okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear your assessment since you did the research. It would be
So,
useful for others. Okay, so let's hear your assessment.
sure. So I was a student at IIM Kozhikode, like during my fellowship. So we had a course on policy there, and I really found the faculty was amazing at what they were doing. But it was not organized, because it was we were the pilot. Honestly speaking, we were the pilot batch which it started with. So maybe in a few years or so, it will scale and become a thing of its own. But at that time when I was looking at it, I did not, the courses were not available other than, say, a short-term course or a diploma. It was not a master's degree in general. And other than that, I think Ashoka is something that the university that I respect, because the kind of work they do and the kind of people I have met from there have sort of really impressed me when it comes to policy work.
Okay, good. So now you've decided to go abroad. Which were the places you considered?
So when it came to coming abroad, I think the first question which I asked was finances. So they were I think based on my research and calculation, US was out of the game, because it was not something that I could afford. Other than that, I had some universities in Singapore. The National University of Singapore was something that I really looked forward to, because I really liked the course they had and spoken to a lot of people from the college. And other than that, in Europe, I was looking primarily at Hertie and LSE and a few colleges in London where I sort of liked the course and the kind of things they focused on. And it happened to be so when I look back that a lot of colleges I applied for and I got through where I did not meet the financial criteria, or somehow there was some sort of negotiation involved which I could not surpass. And Hertie also offered a lot of courses and a lot of professors who I wanted to learn from and work with. So that sort of led me here. And other than that, like there were a few universities like LSE and NUS which I was looking at.
Okay, fine. And you're happy with your choice?
I would say I am.
Yeah.
I've just done the first semester, but I would really, it's not just Hertie, it's also Berlin and it's Europe. And Hertie really offers you a lot of flexibility, which I think is not the case with a lot of other universities, even compared to my undergrad for that matter. I don't feel like I'm a student, I'm just a student. I also feel like I'm also professionally invested in the degree as I would be in a job.
Okay.
So,
all right, wonderful. Good. So now let me come to the next issue. That since you've gone through so much experience, what tips do you have for young people who might then be say, hey, Sagnik did this, maybe I can do something like him. What tips do you have for them?
I think first thing is don't try to control how things will look for you, because how things will look, you don't know. What I did when I was 18 was trying to chasing certainty first very strongly. I think it's sort of becoming comfortable with how uncertain professional life looks like, and no matter how hard we try to control it. So maybe that, and also conversations. I think conversations have been a very big um, a very big tool for me to understand professional life. The more and more we speak to people, the more people we speak to. And I really feel like conversations are very powerful. So they can give you perspective, they can give you insight, and try to be try to accept whatever comes to you professionally. It will all make sense when you look back.
Mm.
I
All
think
right, wonderful. Okay. I think we are sort of coming to an end, and it's my practice to give the speaker the final comment, the last word.
I think firstly, I'm really grateful, to be a part of this Vidped series, and I've followed your work, not just here like your YouTube channel. And I've really learned, and I really hope that this grows more and we create a network of more development professionals and more people so that, we can share our stories and it sort of grows into an ecosystem of its own.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Don't go away. I want to talk to you offline, but let's end the recording here. I'll be back with another young person or next person. Till then, bye everybody. Bye.